Alright, it's been nearly 4 years and Nintendo still hasn't convinced me to buy a Switch. Why? Well, I've been playing some of the best Switch games years before they came out. It's because I have one of these things, a Wii U. I love this thing. During this console's lifespan, Nintendo actually had the mentality that making good games would sell consoles. So, naturally, they made some of their best games of the decade and utterly failed at selling Wii Us. And then the Switch came out, making them realize that things are really the other way around. A successful console will lead to game sales. And I've gotta say, what they've been doing this generation hasn't done much to win me over. Especially since half of its good games are being sold at way higher prices than what I can get them for right now. When they announced that Tropical Freeze was coming out on the Switch, it finally got me to open the eShop back up and buy the game that's been on my wishlist for years, only to be greeted with the words, "Software currently unavailable." Thanks, Nintendo. I ended up having to buy a used physical version that has awful load times. Yay. And it happened again with Pikmin 3. If you follow Nintendo news, you've probably heard that it also got taken out of the eShop following its announcement for release on the Switch. For that game, Nintendo did cave into public outcry and put it back on the eShop, at a third of the price of the Switch version. But Tropical Freeze is still gone. Thanks, Nintendo. Surprisingly enough, 3D World and New Super Mario Bros. U are still available for $20 and $60 respectively, so they're not even consistent with these removals. Speaking of which, you know it's on the Wii U but not the Switch? Mario Galaxy 2. I mean, it's $20, but hey, at least they're giving you the option to play it. If you look at what Nintendo's been putting out, I'm clearly not the target audience for most of these games. So let me get this straight. Nintendo obtains ROMs from preservation sites. They sell access to these ROMs, bundled with an emulator that's inferior to what's been available for free for decades for an annual fee.
On the right is Nintendo's Virtual Console version of Super Mario Bros. That is what's called an iNES header. An iNES header is a header format developed by amateur software emulators in the late 90s. What's that doing in a Nintendo product? I would posit that Nintendo downloaded Super Mario Bros. From the internet and sold it back to you.
You can't just pay them once for these games. You have to keep paying them every single year you want to play them. And then they proceed to file legal action against the ROM sites. I just find it funny that they call the introduction of emulators created to play illegally copied Nintendo software the greatest threat to date to the intellectual property of game developers.
That's a screen cap from Nintendo.com that's still there.
When that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, okay, I guess it's in my best interest not to support these threatening practices with my wallet. Maybe I'm just old, but I do still remember the times when Nintendo did make a real effort to make their games better for new generations. Some good examples of this are the Mario Advance series, Kirby Superstar Ultra, the GameCube and N64 Zelda games, Star Fox 64, Mario 64, Metroid Prime Trilogy, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, and NES Remix among others. But unfortunately, they figured out that even without the effort, they can still sell inferior versions of what enthusiasts have been passionately refining and distributing for free and start swimming in money. And let's be clear, the things the modding and emulation community are doing add way more value and replayability to these games than the things Nintendo has been doing this past generation. I can race through the Luncheon Kingdom in Mario Kart Wii. They gave Mario a fully functional portal gun. We can mix up the contents of every chest in Zelda games, and people speedrun them like this. I can play Super Smash Bros. Melee against people from across the country with a gameplay experience that's near identical to playing it in person. Something that Nintendo has continued to show its incompetence with in all their games. Looking at sales, it's clear that these amazing things the community does won't impede on the sales of Nintendo's products. Piracy is still incredibly easy, not that I would know from experience. And yet Mario 3D All-Stars remains one of the best-selling games on the Switch. What the modding community does do is keep the public's attention on Nintendo's franchises alive. As things are now, the creators of these incredible tools have to live in fear of the hammer coming down on them from Nintendo. Remember what happened to AM2R and Pokemon Uranium when they got nominated for the Game Awards? Yeah. These developers that were skilled enough to make games of high enough quality to be considered real threats to upcoming Nintendo games are viewed as leeches to be torn away.
So, some of you over the years may have noticed that several of my videos have gone missing. Needless to say, it's not because I chose for them to vanish. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Nintendo have, gradually over the years, made more and more of my videos inaccessible, with varying consequences to my YouTube account.
It doesn't have to be this way. When Capcom stopped the development of a fan-made Resident Evil 2 remake, the fan games creators got invited to a Capcom office where they were able to talk to the actual developers. Sega hired some of their top fan game creators and came out with some of their best games of the decade as a result. Nintendo as a company is clearly divided. Like all game companies, there are the passionate developers that just want to make great gaming experiences for people to enjoy. There are the executives that want to maximize profits. And there's public relations who want to ensure that their reputation is as pristine as they can possibly keep it, whatever that means. The unfortunate fact is that without those last two, the developers wouldn't be where they are today. Only one of these departments is really responsible for the incredible games that transcend generations. The other two are just going to put more barriers between their consumers and enjoying their products. It's unfortunate that supporting one will make the others think they're doing the right thing. If you follow a lot of stuff surrounding Nintendo, you've probably heard of them holding back the coverage of its games on YouTube for years with its predatory creators program. They falsely flag videos and even straight up ban people for streaming games they bought from Nintendo themselves.
Play videos of Nintendo's copyrighted, protected, and unreleased video game Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Banned. I own the game. I bought a legal copy of the game and I was playing it on my online European account. Nintendo, let me play this game.
You've probably heard about the cease and desist given to the Smash Bros. Major tournament, The Big House, or the subsequently halted progress of the Splatoon tournament because its players supported the Melee community. You might have even heard that all this isn't new, and that they've been stifling the growth of their competitive games for years.
We would have been on ESPN, TNT, TBS, ABC. Like, there were opportunities. There was so much momentum and so many people that wanted to get their hands on this golden goose egg that's Melee. And frankly, we would have had even more if it wasn't for Nintendo.
If Nintendo isn't giving me the experiences I care about the most, why should I continue throwing money at them? Am I really going to keep hoping they'll change their ways when it hasn't happened in over a decade? I thought Nintendo was moving in the right direction when they killed my primary Smash game, the Brawl mod Project M, by selectively showing support for the tournaments that opted not to host events with the mod. I thought they were making an attempt to support the community. Looks like I was wrong. Nintendo was responsible for ending major tournaments of that game too. Nintendo has made it clear they don't want their most passionate players to be heard. The kind of passionate community that companies have tried and failed to pay millions and millions of dollars for, Nintendo already has. Instead of cultivating these groups into communities they would want to associate with more, they go out of their way to kill events. They do this to the community that breaks their backs to haul dozens of CRT televisions and pays hundreds of dollars for flights and hotels just to get the chance to play against the top players from across the country, because that was the only possible way to do it. And we're talking a sizable community that can fill convention centers with regularity without getting a cent of major advertising from Nintendo. Trust me, if Nintendo came out with a better way to experience the game that we love, we would have gladly paid for it years ago.
This is their list of what they consider notable games, the editors of Wikipedia. How many can you buy right now? Think about 5 of them. How many of these can you buy in more than one place? Oh, that's interesting. All right, here are the top grossing films of '89. How many of those can you get right now? Oh, you can get all of them right now. But how many of them can you get cross-device, cross-platform? Oh, you can get all of them, cross-device, cross-platform. Every one of these.
The Melee community is built around a game that hasn't been re-released by Nintendo in over 19 years. We can't even pay for licenses to the game even if we wanted to. But they didn't want to improve on that foundation, so the community did. We created tools and experiences that would completely obsolete anything that Nintendo puts out officially. Slippy has made Melee's online service far better than the online service of any game released in Nintendo's history due to its implementation of rollback netcode, adjustable input buffer, automatic replay saving, and match statistics tracking. Uncle Punch's training mode has become arguably the best practice tool in any fighting game in existence. And we distribute the tools to get your legal copy of Melee into that state for free. Let's be honest, who am I more inclined to support? The individuals who are actually giving me what I want? Or the corporation that's repeatedly failed to make an experience that's better than this 20-year-old game? When there's greater demand than supply, when there's no moral obligation to support the developers because you can't buy the product from them even if you wanted to, and when one of the longest living gaming communities in existence is welcoming you, you reach the point where the sketchy, treacherous, and tedious avenue of piracy becomes a more convenient option than searching and clicking buy. This is what happens when you alienate your fanbase. They outgrow their dependence and loyalty to you. And Nintendo doesn't like that, so they stand in the way of the opportunities that would benefit people like the competitive Melee scene. They've been doing it for over 10 years.
Chillin was saying that in 2006, this is the first time this happened to him, you know. He qualified, they were supposed to play on ABC, like this is the MLG circuit, and then that was the first time Nintendo shut something down. Now that was TV. But Chillin told all his friends in high school, I'm gonna be on TV playing Melee. They were like, you're full of shit, look, it didn't happen. That was the first time Chillin kind of realized, like, missing a lot of opportunities with this Melee thing here because of Nintendo.
It's really hard to call Nintendo's $25 prize pools for the big events developer support for the competitive scene. The winner of my grassroots Project M local will make more than that. So how has the scene stayed alive for all these years? Well, it's thanks in no small part to the companies like Red Bull, Amazon, and even Microsoft, along with the individual tournament organizers like Juggle Guy who invest tens of thousands of dollars into events with no guarantee they'll get them back. And let's remember, these are the opportunities that Nintendo gets in the way of. We're sadly in the place where one of the top 10 Melee players in the world can't enjoy the game he loves with people around the world because he accepted an offer to work as a developer for the series. Now, some of you may be wondering why large communities of people haven't moved on from nearly 20-year-old games. Believe it or not, there is still a great amount of appeal in these old games. There's a reason why lists of the greatest films of all time don't solely consist of the hottest new releases. George Lucas has made it clear that being newer and having more characters and explosions doesn't make something better, even if it's by the same supposed visionary. And even if the new things are better to you, that doesn't mean everything else is worthless. Nintendo themselves will vouch for this, judging by how much of a success 3D All-Stars was for them. Some of Nintendo's newer games diminish what gave their franchises their staying power, like the most popular fighting game of all time that me and my friends did play extensively before changing course to Project M and actually started having fun. Or that top 10 best-selling Switch game that my cousin brought with him during Christmas that we chose to ignore and play Mario Party 8 instead. Or the latest entry in the largest media franchise of all time with a growing number of nearly hour-long YouTube videos about how it abandoned the aspects that made it so great.
I say it once, I say it again. Pokemon Sword and Shield is a Pokemon Showdown advertisement.
Why, Nintendo? Well, they may have just figured out that if they make some of the greatest games of all time, people just won't move on. They'll enjoy them for years and Nintendo will only get those $60 from them. The cynic in me thinks it might just be planned obsolescence, making games with less lasting appeal to make the new shiny toy more desirable. There is still the possibility of incompetent and out-of-touch game direction geared towards accessibility at all costs, which would just give me less faith in the company's future. These newer games might not appeal to me, but looking at the sales numbers, clearly people want to buy them. What can you do? Either way, none of these explanations can really explain why Nintendo actively stifles the growth of even its current generation of competitive games like Smash Ultimate. Nintendo's actions have shown that it's fine with competition. I mean, just look at its promotion of Mario Tennis Aces, ARMS, Splatoon, and Smash Ultimate's online. It showcases other third-party competitive games in their Nintendo Directs, and they even broadcast tournaments to their official YouTube channel. Why are they blocking the opportunities for hundreds of thousands of dollars being injected into its competitive scene and stifling the opportunities of the game being televised? Shouldn't Nintendo want the games it's actively promoting to get as much of this free marketing as they can get? And that's when a friend of mine sent me this message. Nintendo has long ruled its niche in gaming, games targeting the casual gamers. They also know that games with large fan bases can develop a lot of toxicity, especially competitive ones.
I just said you stink. No.
I'm sure he tries to shower.
Oh.
I shower I can though? Yes.
It's a lot worse for Nintendo since the vast majority of their money comes from people that are not as familiar with that type of scene, and would be put off by even low levels of toxic behavior.
No, you're cheating.
You're gonna learn. This is the real world. You learn it early, son.
Additionally, in traditional esports, the top players are the centers of attention. They are the biggest influencers of the game's competitive scene. The problem is that these top players might not align with Nintendo's values. You think Nintendo wants to vet every single player that gets good at its games?
Oh, okay. Okay. School. Okay. Oh, somebody click that. Oh.
As things stand now, Nintendo's actions have been completely consistent with this. The competitions Nintendo run intentionally reduce the focus on players when compared to other events. You'll often see more basic play-by-play commentary by the people they handpick to commentate.
Critical hit here. Trying to block, gets the forward air. Is it enough? No.
There are no player cams during matches, even in events where it's clearly possible. There usually aren't any player interviews either. The Smash player Ido had to use his real name when competing with fellow Smash player John Numbers in the Nintendo World Championships.
Ladies Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a new Nintendo World Champion, Thomas G.
It's a very safe, very sterile viewing experience that mitigates the risk of putting the spotlight on the players.
Times before, but what are you feeling right now?
This is incredible. You know, usually I'm the runner-up, or I never make it all the way, but today I did it.
Well, listen, raise that trophy. You got this.
They really, really do not want to be seen as endorsing people that they haven't vetted, and so naturally, they keep these tournaments from expanding and getting seen by their target demographics parents, even when that comes at the direct expense of its players and tournament organizers.
Dude, with no marketing budget, our events go even to positive with just ticket sales, right? Just ticket sales! No broadcast rights sales, no sponsorship sales. Like, we could literally be the most profitable esports of all time. Literally, I'm not even joking in that. Like, it's like we just don't do any sponsorships, and we can't. We haven't been able to. All these other developers are sinking money in and running events which no one shows up to, and like they put the ticket sales at like $0 or $10 to try to get a crowd going of any sort. Overwatch League pays people to show up to their fucking live show. We're pulling in numbers and people to actually spend money on our product. People pay for $300 controllers. You know what the f? You need one person working on this. You don't even need a fucking 4 or 5 man team. You need one person working on who works for the community who's like, yeah, keep it working, guys. I'm gonna do the sponsorship sales. You guys keep everything lock steady, you know? And they'll make that one person will pay for their salary times like 50. And this is like what they're not doing. It's so fucking stupid.
Until recently, Nintendo has generally only intervened in events that would attract media attention. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in prize money, getting broadcast on mainstream TV, or anything that would bring in a large number of casual viewers that wouldn't know the difference between a Yahoo Esports Run event and a Nintendo Run event. Again, having your brand being used to promote people and groups that you haven't personally vetted is scary. So that's where they draw the line. They begrudgingly accept the existence of grassroots tournaments with viewer bases that have a better chance of understanding Nintendo's mineral role. For the bigger ones, they partner with them by getting them to allocate floor space to Nintendo, force them to run Nintendo advertisements, and restrict the use of game modifying tools for little to no return, and the back alley shakedown agreement that they won't shut you down this year if you continue to comply.
We've tried so hard. We've literally handed opportunities, marketing, everything to them. And like in the end, like for multiple years, we had to show their ads on stream, show their logo on stream, give them floor space. They give us nothing, and then they shut down the event. Like, what is the point of being a partner? Like, being a partner is like the worst deal of all time. It's the worst trashy deal of all time that you only do because you're hoping not to get shut down, and then you still get shut down.
And so the scene stays mostly underground, only seen a small handful of times a year by the casual Twitch viewer. But hold up. Wasn't there a period in competitive Smash where tournaments didn't want to be seen by too wide an audience? I'm sure Nintendo would love to be in that position again. And wasn't this during a time when the Melee and Brawl communities actually came together to compete in a common game? And wasn't this game way easier to distance from Nintendo themselves while still requiring the purchase of Nintendo's products? That's right, I'm talking about Project M. There was a period in Smash's history where Project M was the main event in some tournaments. When you're constantly afraid of legal action being taken by Nintendo, a company that for some reason wants to exert control over their products even after the consumer has bought them, you're gonna want to limit your reach so that the hammer doesn't come down on you. And you think ESPN would even consider broadcasting what might be considered an illegal children's party game? Of course they're not. But with Nintendo's crusades to get Project M off Twitch while its tournament scene was at its peak, tournament organizers tried to bring legitimacy back to their scene instead. They started working out the deals that we now know Nintendo shut down. If they just let Project M live, we wouldn't be in this situation. Players would have a game that was built around them. Nintendo gets this ideal world where the competitive scene stays underground. It's a win-win. This train of thought isn't coming out of nowhere. There's another Nintendo-based competitive scene that's thriving, comfortably sitting at tens of thousands of active users on a platform completely detached from Nintendo, and that's Pokemon Showdown. With it, you can do any battle type that's possible in-game, with every single Pokemon in existence, even the ones that were cut out of Sword and Shield. All of them are fully customizable without the tedium of actually putting together a team in the real games.
X-Sludge? Dude, are you f***ing stupid? Why is this thing black sludge? Why did you stop my
glass.
sweep for me?
You can do tons of things that aren't even close to possible in the real games if you can figure things in the right way.
What Alakazam is that?
Alakazam Jolt.
Showdown has even had real money tournaments. This is a way better experience for those looking for pure competition while still not detracting from the sales of the real games. I mean, just look at how well Pokemon Sword and Shield sold. The kind of hostile overreaching Nintendo's been doing to the Smash community without the decency to tell us what they're doing makes me really hesitant to support the competitive scenes of any of the games that they're putting out this generation. From trying to control what people do with the games they bought and now own, artificially limiting access to these games, and continuing to fight the piracy of games for which there's no clear legal alternative to playing, well, you know, outside of owning out-of-print hardware and software.
The internal batteries have died, causing you to lose any save data and the ability to save your games.
And their hostile behavior and lack of transparency to the people that love their games so much they've turned them into careers, it's been made very clear that Nintendo's interests are absolutely not aligned with its most passionate players. Whew. Now that that's out of the way, this is the part of the video where I tell you guys to subscribe. Because even if every single one of my subscribers watched my last video, less than 10% of my viewers will have been subscribed. Please feed my ego and allow me to see those numbers go up, and then I can maybe justify making more of these crazy time-consuming videos. What was this video about again? Oh yeah, why I'm not buying a Switch. Despite the many issues I have with Nintendo, that doesn't stop the Switch from being a very appealing product to many people. I should be looking at the great games that do still exist in the Switch's library, a few of which do really appeal to me. The one that really stands out to me right now is Splatoon 2. If there wasn't a useless $300 brick attached to it, I would happily pay the $60 to buy it. There's also the Octo expansion DLC for $20. And you know what? I might be willing to pay for it if I'm enjoying the game. But to get to the point, I'll need to spend another $20 because Nintendo Switch Online is a paid service now. That's right, Splatoon 2 isn't a $60 game anymore. It's effectively an $80 or $100 game for the 1 or 2 years of Nintendo Switch Online you'll be buying. You'll be buying the privilege of playing against 10-year-olds on Wi-Fi because they don't know to buy the sold separately external peripheral that allows you to use a wireless Ethernet connection that's $30? Are you serious? It doesn't have to be like this. Why do I say that? Well, let me hop on for glory and hey, a match. Nice. How much am I paying for this? $0. In fact, you were able to play Splatoon 2 online for over a year for free. And with the flip of a switch, it's a paid service now. Yay. So the cost of playing Splatoon 2 for a new Switch owner is $300 for the Switch, $60 for the game, $20 for the online plan, $30 for the network adapter. So you'll be paying $410 just to see if you like the game enough to buy the DLC for $20 and a Pro Controller for $70. This brings us to $500 for the complete Splatoon 2 experience for one person. That is too much. And here is where people jump in to say that the $400 in Switch and controller purchases isn't just for Splatoon 2. The Switch and its accessories can also be used for other great games in its library, and also the Wii U games that I already own, the subscription fee for playing but not owning the retro games that I've already purchased on other systems, and the indie games that I bought for way less on PC, while also getting more control options, features, and mod support. And here's where I ask the question, how many of these games would I have bought if I didn't have to justify my purchase of the $300 brick? Maybe 2. As someone that used to identify as a huge Nintendo fan, that feels really weird, especially when you look at how many 3DS and Wii U games I have. And then I realized the reason why I bought these games wasn't because they were all amazing. I probably bought some of these games because I was a Wii U owner trying to make the best of the $300 brick I had committed to now. Let's be honest, would I have really bought Ninja Gaiden 3 or Hyrule Warriors 1 if the Wii U wasn't my primary platform? Like, come on. This same sunk cost fallacy might be one of the reasons why Nintendo refuses to drop the Switch's price. The more you spend on the console, the more you feel that you need to justify a purchase by spending more money on games. The people that see a Switch and know they want to buy it generally aren't even the type to consider its competitors as real options. They just want a Switch. So having a more lucrative price point isn't going to affect things like they do with PlayStation and Xbox. Nintendo keeps the upfront cost of their system high in order to trap customers in their ecosystem and spend more money on their products. Hey, where have I heard that before? Now this video has been incredibly harsh on the Switch, but I will admit, for its target market, that being the younger generation and the adult casual gamers, who, let's be honest, aren't gonna have multiple consoles, let alone a Wii U, the Switch is probably the best option in the market, especially if they're not into the game library you could get on a used PS4, and are intimidated by the steep cost of getting a mid-tier gaming PC. There just aren't any worthy door competitors. Just because it's not for me, that doesn't mean it's not a compelling option for many people. I just hope that more people can come to understand that the Switch isn't perfect. To any prospective Switch buyers, if you still exist, consider buying a used PS4 and a used Wii U. Getting both will still cost you less than buying a new Switch, and boy do those games cost a lot less.